Okay, let's start in on notes. So we hopefully have filled in our factor squares. Um, Again, just because we're doing this distance learning, we had to create our own factor squares. So we have just this awesome resource that's really going to help us work on our factoring. So we're going to be looking at this page a lot. I've also uploaded a document that you can have open on your computer so that can help you go back and forth maybe, but I think it is really kind of valuable to write those down just because it kind of jogs your memory a little bit. So today we're going to review this idea of prime factorization. So this should be familiar. The way that I set it up may be a little bit different, but the skill is something that you're familiar with. So we're on page 95. And again, here are all my factors that I'm going to be referencing. All right, so let's just review a little bit about what factoring is and what prime numbers are. So, factoring. So when you're factoring a number, you are, for lack of a better word, breaking the number into multiples. So, for example, the number 20 has quite a few factors, right? I could break that into 4 and 5, or I could take 20 and I could do 2 and 10, right? So factoring, it's saying what values multiplied together create that number. So we're going to review prime factoring. So let's review a prime number, right? Or prime factoring. And so prime factoring is taking factoring one step further. So prime factoring is when you are breaking a number into only prime numbers. So you're going to continue to factor. So like 20, I factored it to be 4 times 5, which is perfect. But 4 is not a prime number. 5 is, so I'd stop there. But then I'd continue to factor 4 to be 2 and 2. So I want to keep factoring until I get to prime numbers. And then once I have all prime values, then I can stop and write down my answer. So we need to remember when we're done, when you have all of your factors written down, one, we write the numbers in order from least to greatest. Right? So if I had a list of numbers, right, I'm going to have a list of prime values. I'm going to put them in order from least to greatest. And variables are written alphabetically. Whoa, my pen. Got it. Alphabetically. My watch got stuck on my paper. Alphabetically. ABC order. Got it? All right, here we go. Well, let's practice. Let's go with 12x to the third y squared. So I'm going to factor it. If you need, our factor squares are right over here. So 12, I can either pick, it doesn't matter, I can do 2 and 6, or I can do 3 and 4. It doesn't matter which one you choose because you're going to get the same answer no matter what. My gut is usually to go with 2 when it's an even number, just because that's something that my brain just automatically notices. And 2 is prime, so I'm going to circle it. Then I go over to 6, which is 2 and 3, and those are both prime. So my solution, my answer, is 2 times 2 times 3 times x times x times x, because there's 3 of them, x to the third, and y squared would be y times y. And that's the prime factorization. Let's do another. Let's go with green. Let's do 118 x y to the third. Why not? So 118, here's a problem. It's not on my list, right? I stopped at 100. I could keep going, but that's a little redundant. But we can use our divisibility rules. And I know that 118 is even. So 118 can be divided by 2. And 118 divided by 2 is actually 59. And I'm done because I look over here and 59 is a prime number. So the prime factorization of 118 x y to the third is 2 times 59 times x times y times y times y. So pretty straightforward. We're just breaking that up, and especially if you go over here and you use your factor squares, it's going to be really helpful for this. You have to, though, end with prime numbers. Like all of these circled values, 2, 3, 5, 7, right? These are the numbers that you're going to have listed down here. You're not going to have a composite, which is a non-prime number, listed in your prime factorization. The last thing we need to talk about is something that is going to come about when we continue this unit. So if the coefficient, remember coefficient is the number in front of the variable, if the coefficient is negative, first factor out a -1. So if your coefficient is a negative number, you have to first factor out that -1. And that's really important. That's a skill that we have to have down when we start factoring, because right now we're just factoring monomials. But when we start factoring polynomials, whether that's a binomial, trinomial, or a true polynomial, we have to get rid of that leading negative coefficient. That's really going to screw us up. So if your leading coefficient, but right now it's just our coefficient because there's nothing behind it, if your coefficient is negative, you have to factor out that negative value first. So let's practice that really quickly. Let's do -204, yowzers, a to the third, let's go b to the fourth. All right, so I have a negative value. I have a negative leading coefficient. It's just a coefficient because there's nothing behind it, but since I have a negative, I have to factor out a -1. I know that -1 isn't prime, but I have to take that negative out, which leaves behind 204. 204, I don't know the factors of it off the top of my head, but I do know it's even. So I can divide by 2, which is prime also, which is nice. 204 divided by 2 leaves me behind with, 102. Almost made that the wrong number, 102. I don't know factors of 102 off the top of my head. I do know it's even. 2 again. And 102 divided by 2 is 51. Now I'm at a number that I can go over here and look. 51 has 2 factors of 3 and 17. 3 is prime, and so is 17. So my solution, my prime factorization of negative 204 a to the third b to the fourth would be negative 1 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 17. Ooh, I might run out of room. 1, 2, 3. I am. I'll have to go down below. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if you're doing, I think we're doing a Google form over this. When you are typing your answers into that Google form, remember, I'm going to look at your answers, but when you're typing those answers into the Google form, you're going to type in, I'm going to show you this one just because I have a little bit more room. Into the Google form, you'd type 2, comma, space, 59, comma, space, x, comma, space, y, comma, space, comma, space, right? You're going to type in with commas separating it because we don't have access in that Google form template to put the dots for multiplying. I figured this was a little bit easier than using parentheses and grouping with that. So again, remember, I look at what you type in. So that's okay. This is going to be a great resource, right, to help you go through this prime factoring. The key parts, write the numbers in order from least to greatest, right? So, and then write your variables alphabetically, expanded. X to the third means x, x, x. Y squared means y, y. Excellent. Good luck.